Welcome to our channel, your trusted news aggregator. We know you're busy. That's why we're here to save you time by bringing together the most important stories from around the world in one place. No endless scrolling, no jumping between sources. Just the facts you need, delivered fast. If this sounds useful, hit that subscribe button and tap the like icon. Let's stay informed together. This morning, as millions of Americans wake up to a holiday on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the rest of the world is watching markets plunge. Europe is bleeding red. Gold is soaring to unprecedented heights. And once again, the trigger is a single announcement from President Donald Trump. The markets opened in chaos. The Stoxx Europe 600 index, tracking Europe's largest companies, fell 1.4%. France's CAC 40 dropped 1.28%. Germany's DAX slid 1.02%. These aren't just numbers on a screen. These represent billions in value evaporating within hours. What caused this financial earthquake? On Saturday, President Trump announced a new wave of tariffs. But this time, the targets aren't traditional adversaries. They're America's oldest allies. Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland. 8 NATO partners. 8 democracies, 8 nations now facing economic punishment. The reason? Greenland. Trump wants to purchase Greenland, the massive autonomous territory that belongs to Denmark. When European leaders rallied behind Denmark, calling the idea unacceptable, Trump responded with economic warfare. A 10% tariff on all goods from these 8 countries, effective February 1st. If no deal is reached for the purchase of Greenland by June 1st, that tariff rises to 25%. Think about what this means. Every car, every bottle of wine, every luxury handbag, every piece of machinery, everything imported from these nations will become more expensive for American consumers, and European companies will lose their competitive edge in the world's largest economy. If you're finding this valuable, make sure you're subscribed. And drop a comment below. Tell us what you think. Will these tariffs actually happen, or is this negotiation theater? Let's talk about the damage already done. European automakers are in freefall. BMW shares dropped 7% in Frankfurt. Mercedes-Benz fell 6.7%. Volkswagen tumbled 5.4%. The Stoxx Europe 600 Automobiles and Parts Index hit a 52-week low, falling more than 2.8%. These are companies that employ hundreds of thousands of workers. Families depending on stable paychecks are now watching their employers' stock prices crater. The luxury sector is bleeding too. LVMH, the world's largest luxury goods company, dropped more than 4%. Kering fell 2.9%. Hermes tumbled 3.2%. The Stoxx Europe Luxury 10 Index plummeted almost 3%. Wealthy consumers in America might soon be paying significantly more for their designer goods. Meanwhile, American futures markets show Wall Street isn't immune. S&P 500 futures declined 0.9% before U.S. markets closed for the holiday. Traders are bracing for turbulence when markets reopen Tuesday. Here's where it gets interesting. Investors are fleeing to safety. Gold prices surged 1.6%, reaching a record high of $4,770 per ounce. Silver jumped 3.4%. Also hitting historic peaks. When gold rallies like this, it's a signal. Investors are terrified. They're abandoning stocks and pouring money into assets that have held value for thousands of years. The dollar weakened against most major currencies. The euro reversed its early losses and traded higher. Treasury futures gained. This isn't the market behavior you see when investors believe in economic stability. This is panic buying of safe havens. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies retreated. Even the crypto market, known for its volatility and risk appetite, couldn't escape the gravitational pull of fear gripping traditional markets. European leaders are furious. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen posted on social media, "Europe will not be blackmailed." The 8 targeted nations issued a joint statement affirming their full solidarity with Denmark and Greenland. They called Trump's tariffs unacceptable. Behind closed doors, European capitals are preparing countermeasures. According to reports from the Financial Times, the European Union is considering tariffs on 93 billion euros worth of American goods. That's approximately $108 billion. They're also discussing restrictions on American companies operating in Europe. This could escalate into a full-scale trade war between the United States and its most important democratic allies. If you're still watching, hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs to know what's happening, and subscribe so you never miss critical updates. Let's zoom out for a moment. This isn't happening in a vacuum. Throughout 2025, President Trump wielded tariffs as his primary foreign policy tool. He imposed sweeping tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico. He threatened reciprocal tariffs on dozens of countries based on trade deficit ratios. Markets crashed in April when these announcements first came out. The S&P 500 fell 19% before rebounding when the most severe threats were paused or delayed. Analysts started calling it the taco trade. Trump always chickens out. Every time markets panicked, Trump would pause or modify his tariff plans. Investors learned to bet on his backing down. That's why some traders believe this Greenland threat is another negotiating tactic, a bluff designed to extract concessions. But here's the problem with crying wolf. Eventually, people stop believing you. Or worse, they start believing the wolf is real. Tim Waterer, chief market analyst at KCM Trade, said traders are taking a cautious stance until they see how things play out this week. The World Economic Forum begins in Davos, Switzerland. European leaders and global business executives will gather. Trump is scheduled to address the forum on Wednesday. All eyes will be on whether he doubles down or backs away. Vincent Juvens, chief investment strategist at ING in Brussels, warned that while the raised tariffs could be absorbed economically, the possibility of a break within the Western world would have consequences impossible to measure. Think about that. A fracture in the Western alliance. NATO partners turning against each other economically. This is exactly what adversaries like China and Russia want to see. Division among democracies. And that brings us to Greenland itself. Why does Trump want it? He's cited national security. The island sits between North America and Europe. It's strategically valuable. It's also rich in rare earth minerals, critical for technology and defense industries. In his announcement, Trump wrote, "China and Russia want Greenland, and there is not a thing that Denmark can do about it. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection." One added recently, "Denmark and Greenland have rejected any possibility of a sale. Greenland's government has made it clear the territory is not for sale, and never will be." Greenlanders themselves have taken to the streets. Protests erupted in Nuuk, Greenland's capital, with nearly a third of the city's population demonstrating against American acquisition plans. Signs read, "Greenland is not for sale. This is an autonomous people asserting their right to self-determination." And Trump's response is economic coercion against their allies. If you're still here, leave a comment. What do you think happens next? Will Europe retaliate? Will Trump back down? Your perspective matters. Let's talk about the broader economic picture. The Trump tariffs announced throughout 2025 represent the largest U.S. tax increase as a percentage of GDP since 1993, according to analysis from the Tax Foundation. They project these tariffs will raise $2.2 trillion in revenue over the next decade but reduce U.S. GDP by 0.5%. When accounting for negative economic effects, that revenue estimate falls to $1.7 trillion. For the average American household, these tariffs amount to a tax increase of approximately $1,100 in 2025 and $1,500 in 2026. That's money out of your pocket. Higher prices for imported goods, reduced purchasing power, less economic growth. The World Trade Organization released a forecast predicting that under current tariff conditions, world merchandise trade will fall by 0.2% in 2025. North American exports are forecasted to drop by a staggering 12.6%. If reciprocal tariffs and broader policy uncertainty continue, global goods trade could decline by 1.5%. with devastating effects on export-oriented developing countries. Global supply chains are being disrupted. Sectors highly integrated into international production networks, like electrical equipment, electronics, and transport equipment, are seeing output fall by around 30% in some scenarios. Companies that spent decades building efficient, cross-border manufacturing systems are watching them unravel. The Bank of England warned that sharply higher tariffs could trigger a rise in corporate defaults and bank losses. Heavily indebted global firms are most at risk. The European Central Bank echoed these concerns, saying it will factor in security threats and potential restrictions on foreign investment alongside tariffs when assessing financial stability. This is a crisis of confidence. Businesses can't plan. Investors can't predict. Consumers face uncertainty about prices. And all of this stems from unpredictable policy announcements delivered via social media on weekend mornings. Before we wrap up, make sure you've subscribed. Hit that notification bell. And if this reporting has been valuable, smash that like button. Your engagement helps us continue bringing you aggregated news that saves you time. So where do we go from here? Markets will reopen in the United States on Tuesday. European markets will continue to react. The World Economic Forum begins this week. Trump speaks Wednesday. European leaders will hold emergency consultations. Trade negotiators will scramble to find off-ramps. But the damage is already done in some ways. Trust has been eroded, alliances have been strained, markets have been shaken, and families on both sides of the Atlantic are left wondering what comes next. Some analysts believe this is the art of the deal in action, maximum pressure followed by compromise. Others see it as reckless brinkmanship that risks long-term damage to American credibility and economic stability. Only time will tell. What we know for certain is this. Today, January 19, 2026, global markets fell. European stocks plunged, American futures dropped, gold soared to record highs, and it all happened because of a territorial dispute over an Arctic island and the economic weapons deployed to fight it. Stay informed, stay critical. And remember, we're here to aggregate the news so you don't have to hunt for it. Subscribe for daily updates, like if you found this valuable, and comment with your thoughts. What happens next? You tell us. This has been your news briefing. We'll see you in the next one.